All right. Good afternoon or good morning, I guess, depending on where you are in the world. I see the first three names I see on my screen in the comments section are all well. Sarah Lee's in Mountain Time. She's in Salt Lake City, which means it's still morning for her. But the other two are in California, so I guess I should just say good morning. It's just people over here on in the Eastern time zone. But glad to have all of you with us today. Hello to all of our small firm architecture friends out there. I'm really excited because today we're kicking off day one of our 5 days to build a risk management plan for your small architecture firm. It's a challenge, it's a 5 day challenge. So, welcome to the challenge. You have already noticed that on the screen with me today is Zach Waters. I'm looking at the names that I see on the screen right now. All of you know who Zach Waters is. My name is Jeff Echols. If we've never met before, I am the director of brand strategy at Entree Architect. I'm also the host of Context and Clarity Live. And Zach has been a two-time guest on Context and Clarity Live. Zach is a risk management expert. He leads the Black Swan Risk Management Group out of California, which is where some of our California friends are joining us from. So he's no stranger to this community. Mark and I started talking. Mark LePage, who's now with us. Hi, Mark. Good afternoon to you, and Benita as well. The wave from Benita. Benita says it's not showing up on Facebook yet. All right, let me check on that here in just a minute. But we are simulcasting out to a lot of platforms, so we'll have to do a little bit of logistical things here probably as we go. But thanks for that heads up, Benita. But Mark and I had this idea. Hey, we've been doing these challenges going back to 2021, basically 5 days to help you succeed at something. We've been doing that in the community. Lots of different topics. What if we rolled this into Context and Clarity, which is something that we do every single day, and we brought in an expert once a month to help us do these challenges? And Zach stepped up and said, "Hey, I'd love to do a challenge." He's so great. He's our
Thank
friend and
you.
our guinea pig.
Love it. Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Yeah, and what Zach is an expert in, and this topic that we have is something that I'm pretty sure that all of you need, because as I have conversations with many, many small firm architects from around the world all the time, there's almost never a small firm architect that raises their hand and says, "Yeah, I've got a risk management plan. I've got something in place right now." Right. I know this and I know that, and I have this in place. And, here's my plan. Here's the piece of paper, the PDF or whatever it is. Almost never does somebody say that. And even if you do say that, even if you do say, "Hey, I've got a risk management plan. This will be a great week, 5 days of a challenge to help you build your own risk management plan. This will be a refresher course if you're already there. This will be a great primer if those renewals are coming up, which they always seem to be." But it's a great honor to have Zach here with us as the expert to lead us through this challenge this week. I'm just here to host it. I'm just here to facilitate it. Zach is here as our expert to talk about risk management for small firm architects. So Zach, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, Jeff, thank you for having me. This entree community is near and dear to my heart. I see a lot of people on here that I recognize, a lot of folks that are clients of mine, some folks that I'm on some mastermind calls with. And so really, really excited to be able to do this today.
Awesome. Great to have you here. I'm looking around the room again. We see Jefferson and Sarah Lee and Scott and Benita. Mark LePage is with us, Wendy Brown, Daniel Stewart, Ryan Shoup, and Chucktown Sean is in the house. Hey, Sean Key. Glad to have you here as well. We are streaming this out. As we say on Context and Clarity Live, we're streaming this out to all the platforms. We're simulcasting this to the Entree Architect Community Facebook group, the Architects and Allies Facebook group, to the Entree Architect YouTube channel, Twitch stream, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, so that we can get as many people involved as in this conversation as possible. Again, this is a 5-day challenge. Some of you may not be familiar with the format, so let me just explain it real quickly. 5 days. You're here for day one. Congratulations, you made it. Every day at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, Zach and I will be here live with you. And we're going to have what I love to call them micro learning units. We'll have a little bit of learning every single day for 5 days. And then Zach's going to assign homework every day, right? And so this is a learn and do opportunity. And the idea is that you're going to learn something today, and then you're going to complete homework based on what you learned. And tomorrow you're going to learn something, and you're going to complete homework. And by the end of 5 days, you will build your own risk management plan based on what Zach is going to teach you, based on the homework that you're going to do. And we're going to go through this in the 5 days. Okay, so that's the general format of it. We will go through this. You're going to have some questions, right? You're going to get into the homework and you're going to go, okay, how do I actually apply this to what I'm doing? Or how do I find this? Or whatever the homework of the day is, you're going to have some questions. We'll have a little bit of Q&A time in each of these sessions, but we also have an opportunity where you can join us backstage, a full hour of Q&A, basically 5 hours of time over the course of a week with a risk management expert. What's that worth to you, right? What's it worth to you to be able to pick the brain of a risk management expert over the course of this week? Well, here's the thing. I see a lot of names. I know that a lot of you are members of paid members of the Entree Architect Academy. If you are, then this backstage pass that I'm about to talk about, this VIP pass, VIP access is free to you. It's already available to you through your member login. If you're not a paid member of that, it's only $97 to get the entire week of backstage access. But I've got a little bit of a surprise for you. Today, we're going to give everybody access to the backstage. Today, everybody's going to get the full hour of Q&A. We'll give you a Zoom link towards the end of the conversation today so that you can see, hey, this is what the training is like, and this is what the backstage, this is what the Q&A is like afterwards. We're going to be doing this every day. So you can make the decision after today, if you don't already have access to it, if you're not already a paid member of the Entree Architect Academy, you can decide whether it's worth ponying up $97 to get access to Zach for an entire week. Okay, so that's coming up. As I look at the comments, Sarah Lee says that I need to show this link, I think is what she's talking about. If you're on Facebook right now and you see us, that means that you're seeing us from a closed Facebook group, and your comments may not be showing up because of privacy rules in Facebook. So what you need to do is take this URL that's at the bottom left-hand corner right now, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. So type chat.restream.io/FB into your browser window, and within a couple of clicks, you'll give Facebook permission to talk to Restream, which is the platform that we're using here. So chat.restream.io/FB helps or allows you to give Facebook permission to talk to Restream, and the and your comments and your picture and everything will start showing up here on the side in the chat if it's not already. Sean is asking, is the backstage discounted for our EA paid members who are not in mastermind groups? Yes, it is. All Entree Architect members will have full access included in your membership to the backstage and VIP access. So you may go over to entrearchitect.com and go, what's it cost to become an Entree Architect member, and start doing the math and go, yeah, it's totally worth becoming a member of Entree Architect to get that for free. I'm going to let you go over there, entrearchitect.com. You can do the math and figure out which you would rather pay for. But you can see in the comments right there that if you want to register for the VIP access, go to entrearchitect.com/VIP. That's also now down at the bottom left of your screen. So, so that's what's going to happen. We're going to have the training 1 p.m., 10 a.m. every weekday, every day this week, Monday through Friday. And then directly after the training, we'll have the backstage. And I'll give you a link for today that you can use. Everybody can use that. Emma, yes, you will be, if you have access to the Q&A, yes, you'll have access to all the recordings, the training that we're about to get into now, as well as the Q&A later, the backstage later. All of those will be available, all of the resources that we share, all the homework and everything. If you have the backstage and VIP, you get all of that. All of that's included. So for life, it's just like any other challenge that I've run. I know Emma has been involved in some of those challenges as well. So so it's just like all the challenges, Emma. But that's included in all of that. So what else? Oh, and let me put another link up on the screen, entrearchitect.com/challenge. You're here, right? You've made it. You've found it. If you'd like a daily email reminder and the homework assignment emailed to you, go to entrearchitect.com/challenge, and you can sign up for that there. Right? You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you want it to arrive in your inbox, it'll be there. Which reminds me, if you're not doing that, go to the Entree Architect Community Facebook group. Many of you are there already, and I have created a guide inside of that group that will hold all of this challenge material. So I'll move I'll copy all of the recordings into that guide. I'll copy all of the homework into that guide. It's an easy way to be able to locate everything that we do this week, short of the VIP, short of the backstage piece of it, because that's the VIP access. But all the trainings and all the homework will be in the guide section. And I guess I can and should set up a guide over in the Architects and Allies group as well. I haven't done that yet, but I will. I'll set that up. So if you're accessing this through the Architects and Allies group, later today, it might be this evening before I get to it, but at some point today, I will get the guide set up in that group as well. Again, super simple way to find it. In the tabs at the top of the Facebook group, it says, what does it say? It says about, it says discussions, it says featured. There's one that says guide. You click on that, and then over on the left, you'll find a guide for this challenge. And then as we go through the week, boom, 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 everything. Here's the video for day one. Here's the homework for day one. Here's the video for day two. Here's the homework for day two. It's just a super easy way to organize and find it. So I'll set that up for the Architects and Allies group as well. I forgot about that. Apologies to all of you that are coming over from that side. But in the Entree Architect community side, the guide is already there. We'll continue to populate it as the week goes. All right. That's a lot of Jeff talking about logistics. If anybody has any specific questions about logistics, just drop it into the comments from wherever you are, and we'll try to answer it either through the comments or verbally as we go here. But I do want to make sure that we save enough time for our conversation and training here as we go. So, Manuel, welcome from New York City, sunny New York City. Congratulations. We finally had sun in Indiana. We haven't seen it for 9 months. It came yesterday, so that's a great thing. There's a panic. We didn't know what that bright light was, but we're getting used to it now. Gene from Annapolis, Maryland, welcome. Let's see, who else has joined us since the beginning? You're going to know a lot of these people, Zach, aren't you?
I do. I see a lot of names I recognize, but some that I don't, which is great.
Yeah, definitely great. The D1N75 from YouTube, that's Diego. He's down in Nicaragua. So good morning, Diego. Glad you're joining us today. And Michelle in La Mesa, California. Hi, Michelle. John Jones in Connecticut. Let's see. I think we've said hi to everybody now. Hopefully, if I missed you, I apologize. Great to have you here. Again, welcome. This is day one of the 5 days to build a risk management plan for your small architecture firm challenge. I'm sure I messed that title up somehow.
That's okay. It's a mouthful.
It is a
It's a
mouthful.
mouthful.
It's a long title, but I love it because it's self-explanatory. Again, if you just joined us since the beginning, we're running this challenge this week with the assistance, not even the assistants. I'm here as the assistant under the guidance and expertise of Zach Waters, who many of you know. Zach is co-founder, CEO, right? Is that your title? CEO of Black Swan Risk Management. Zach is a risk management expert, and so he's going to help us over the course of these 5 days to build basically he's going to help you build your own custom risk management plan for your small architecture firm. As I said, if you missed it a few minutes ago, I know there's still a few people coming in. Over the course of 5 days, we're going to have a micro learning unit every single day, which Zach is going to share with us. We're going to have a homework assignment every day. And since I'm the assistant and I'm just the host here, Zach is giving you the homework. I'm not. But he's going to teach you and help you apply. Right? That's what this format is all about. Learn and do all the way through the week. And by the end of the week, you go through the homework assignments for the week, and you will have the basis, the framework for your own risk management plan. I think that is super valuable because I know a lot of you are out there going, yeah, I don't really have a management plan. So we're gonna get into that here this week. The one housekeeping item that I forgot, there's probably more, but the one that just came to my mind at least, is that what I want you to do every single day is after the challenge, after the VIP, after you've looked at the homework and all of that, I want you, if you're up to the challenge, pun intended, if you're up to the challenge, go live inside the Facebook group, whether you're coming to it from the Architects and Allies side or the Entree Architect community side. Go live in the Facebook group and talk about your biggest takeaways from the day. That's my challenge to you. Every day, we want to generate as much engagement and as much conversation around this really important topic as we can this week. So go live. If you say, you know what, I just can't do the camera thing. All right, that's fine. I get it. You don't have to do that. At least post in the Facebook group, hey, here's my homework. Here's what I did for my homework. Here's my biggest takeaway from this day. That's what I want you to do every day. Do that in whichever Facebook group you're coming from. Go live or at least post and say, hey, this is what I learned today. Here's my homework assignment so that others can see. Maybe there are certainly people in the Facebook groups that are going, what the heck is going on? What is this challenge thing? I don't know what this is. They'll even be saying this tomorrow or the day after. So help them understand, right? Help them get on board. Learn from each other, your own lessons, your own takeaways. That's going to help somebody else in this group have an aha moment. So that's what I want you to do is either go live and or post in the group, tonight, later this afternoon, whatever it is, and talk about your biggest takeaway, talk about your homework. And we're on this journey together. We're on this journey of discovery together. So you can play an active part in that journey for somebody else. So with that, I have babbled long enough. I see Sarah Lee has some questions. Let's see. What is the risk management plan? Why do I want it? How do I create one? That's why I'm here. I'm glad you're here for that.
I love it.
I'm glad you're here for that. I think related to Sarah Lee's question, maybe where we should start the conversation is, maybe we just take number one. What's at a very high level, right? We're going to dig into this as we go, but at a very high level, Zach, what is risk management and what is a risk management plan? Maybe
Sure.
why is it important?
It's a great place to start. So think about these on two different hands. One of them being insurance, which is part of what we do. And you kind of hear risk management and you hear it related to insurance. They're not necessarily synonymous, though in our firm, we do both. A very, very large architecture firm or design firm might have a person doing risk management solely, and then they might, have an insurance policy. Risk management is everything that you can do, all of the strategies, techniques, and such that you can do to prevent yourself from having to use the insurance. And the insurance is what's there when either your risk management strategies have failed, and or sometimes life just happens and we have errors and omissions. And we're going to focus really heavily on the professional liability policy for an architect today. It's the big one. It's what encompasses most of our risk. So, we understand that there's a lot of other portions to insurance, but that's kind of where we're going to stay. And so, if I'm going to use a driving analogy, if we all have a driver's license, auto insurance, risk management as a driver is everything that I can do to prevent myself from getting into an accident, right? It is, or if I do get in an accident, prevent myself from fatally being harmed in that accident. It's wearing my seatbelt. It's driving the speed limit or under, somewhere in there. It's using my backup camera. It's paying attention to other drivers and understanding that I can control my world, but I can't control other drivers. So I drive defensively versus offensively, right? It's all those things. And then if all of those fail us and we still get in an accident, insurance is what takes care of that, right? So that's kind of it's the way I think of it. And for my purposes, the risk management is way more fun. It is way more fun to talk about how we can prevent these things from happening than it is to talk about them after the fact when they've happened. Because when they've happened, if you've ever gone through an insurance claim or a lawsuit, something along those lines, there's the actual act of having to deal with it, and it might cost you money. But there's the stress of somebody suing you, somebody being in conflict with you, somebody being upset about what you're doing. And for most people, that's worse, right? The mental aspect of it, the time that it takes up. So that's kind of how I think about risk management.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the driving analogy is a great one, right? Because it's easy for all of us to understand. Well, I assume it is. I'm just making an assumption that most people are familiar with driving, especially in the U.S. Manual, yes, the insurance that we're talking about is your professional insurance that you're, again, assumptions that you're carrying for your firm. For those of us, or for those of you that have maybe just joined us, haven't seen any of the promotional material that's going out or has been going out for this particular challenge, we're going to be doing this for 5 days, and we're going to jump into today's lesson here in just a minute. But some of the things that we're going to talk about, I'm not stealing Zach's thunder. I'm just going to give you, I think, 4 bullet points, right? We're going to talk about standard of care. We're going to talk about scope of work. We're going to talk about job site visits, and we're going to talk about communication. Now, what I would encourage you to think about is, right, you're familiar with all of those terms, right? You're involved with all of those things, and those are bullet points. Like I said, there's a lot of things that revolve around all of these. You're going to have questions. Zach's going to give you a lesson. He's going to give you homework. You're still going to have questions. We're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A, or we're going to try to have a little bit of time for Q&A in all of these sessions. But a reminder that as soon as we're done here, we're going to stick to our time, be respectful of everybody's time. So we're going to end this session at 2 p.m., which is 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And then we're going to go backstage, which is an hour of Q&A available to you. Today, everybody's going to have access to that. I'm going to give you a Zoom link here later. If you are a paid member of the Entree Architect Academy, that is available to you at no cost as part of your membership. If you're not, again, it'll be available to you today. You can decide to purchase that access either by becoming a member of the Entree Architect Academy. Go to entrearchitect.com for that, or by going to entrearchitect.com/VIP. Okay. You'll see what that is today, but that will be an entire hour of Q&A, right? Because questions are going to arise, and we want you to be able to ask specific questions for your own context, right? For your own practice. So, again, don't be afraid to post questions in the chat. We'll get to those as we can. I'm going to apologize now because we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but join us backstage because we've got a lot of time for that backstage, certainly, and hopefully time as we go through training here.
Yeah, and just a comment, it's hard for me because I love to answer questions, right? Questions are what matters to you most, and that's what matters to me. I can stand up here and talk about all kinds of things, but I promise we'll get to as many of those as we can, and especially today, we've got it open to everybody.
Yeah, perfect.
So, Jeff, just another driving analogy for you. As we're talking about risk management, I think we need to understand as an architect what risk we have, right? And it's never my intention to scare anybody out of this profession. Most architects I talk to, this is a calling and they couldn't imagine doing something else. And that is amazing, right? And that should be that way. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the risk that an architect takes on just by being in the profession, just by being in business, right? And it's kind of akin to when I was 16 years old and I got my license. I remember driving, it was summertime. We were being crazy in 16 and it was about 2:00 in the morning and I'm out with a group of friends and I'm driving my car and I was driving like 100 miles an hour on the freeway, right? The car's like starting to shake and all of that. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, right? I am a parent now, not of a driving age child at all, but I am a parent now. And if I could imagine my daughter driving 100 miles an hour, I would freak out, right? Because at 16 years old, I didn't fully understand the risk of that, right? I knew, oh yeah, fast speed, kind of dangerous, but when you're 16, you kind of feel invincible, right? As a parent, you've had a lot more life experience and you understand that you are not invincible, right? And that bad things can happen. And also as a parent, now you're responsible for your driving performance, but also your kids. And I saw Nicole had a question there about employees. Yeah, it's something we need to, we are responsible for our own actions. We are responsible for our employees. If we have them, we are responsible for our sub-consultants as architects, right? We have this thing called vicarious liability, and it is very much a parent-child type liability, where if my 14-year-old gets in trouble at high school and causes some type of damage, they don't come after my 14-year-old for money. They come after the parent. They come after me, right? I am vicariously liable. That's the relationship that we're taking on there. So the best place to start with risk management is establishing that we have this thing called risk, right? And it is the deck's not quite stacked in our favor, right? And we can kind of go, down that rabbit hole. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I want to get into some really meaty standard of care stuff. But the best way I can think about it is, as designers, we are coming up with ideas and other people are executing those ideas, right? And so this idea of a design just being put down on paper, it's going to be imperfect, right? I've never talked to an architect that said, oh, every set of plans that I produce is perfect, right? In fact, I would guess that none of the first set of plans that you produce are perfect. And somebody else is going to go execute that. And a contractor is going to take those plans and they're going to turn them into something tangible, right? But we relinquish that control as a design professional, and it puts us in a tough spot, right? It puts us kind of, again, the deck's not quite stacked in our favor. And so all of this, everything that we've got for you this week is a framework that we've put together that is based in data. It's based in what I have seen in my career and what insurance companies have seen in their careers in terms of the most tangible ways that we can actually help, right? Where we can actually get in and control it, because some of the stuff you just can't control. So we're going to focus this week on what we can't control. And the framework, I call it the 4S framework. I actually coined it on Context and Clarity back in September of last year. It was the 4S's for risk management for a small firm architect. What are you signing? What are you seeing? What are you sending? And what are you saving? What are you signing as a contract? And that's what we're going to talk about today, the standard of care in a contract, and why that's so important. And some of you have had a day or two in the business. You've been doing this for a while, so standard of care is a little old hat. I apologize. We're gonna do a quick refresher on it, but we're gonna take a look at why it is so important, in particular related to insurance. So that's kind of if I can frame it up a little bit, that's kind of the way we're thinking about today. Jeff, do they have access to the homework yet, or is that comes at the end?
They do not have access to the homework yet,
Okay.
unless they've already received today's email. I'm not
Okay.
100%
Gotcha.
positive of that.
That's okay. It's nothing earth shattering. It's a great spot for you to take notes. We've got a couple pieces on there, and we'll kind of go through that. I'm kind of making sure that we can bring people along for the
What
ride.
I will do as Zach is talking is, and I'm, you're going to see me kind of looking around because I'm responding to comment or to messages and things like that. Um, I will post the homework as Zach is talking right now. I will post the homework in both the Entree Architect Community Facebook group and over in the Architects and Allies Facebook group. So depending on which one of those groups you're joining for, give me a minute or two, and
Sure.
I'll have that homework posted. It'll be a PDF. And again, if you want this stuff emailed to you, let me put that up again real quickly. Go to just go to our entrearchitect.com/challenge, and you basically you go through the registration, and the emails will come to you, a daily reminder, I think a calendar event, calendar event, and then the homework every day. So if you're somebody that wants that in your inbox, I would go there and sign up for that. Otherwise, I'll just post every day inside the Facebook groups. So um, I'll get those posted. So you mentioned standard of care.
Mhm.
Maybe what is that? Why is it
Yeah.
important? Maybe that's how we roll into it at this point.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and define it. And I've got the AAB 101 definition here. It's one of the definitions that we work off of. It says the architect shall perform its services consistent with the professional skill and care ordinarily provided by architects practicing in the same or similar locality under the same or similar circumstances. The architect shall perform its services as expeditiously as it is consistent with such professional skill and care and ordinarily progress of the project. Wow, that's a mouthful. It's the duty that you owe. it's the duty that you owe as an architect, and it's the duty that you would owe absent a contract. Right? It's what you're signing on for. In the medical community, we have a very similar idea of the standard of care. In fact, I looked that one up, and I have that definition somewhere. And that's really, really important to talk about because as design professionals, as far as insurance and what we owe our clients, it is much more in line with a medical professional than it is with a contractor, right? It is much more, you are a surgeon, and though you may produce the same project over and over and over again, you can never guarantee an outcome. It just, there's too many variables that are not, in your control. And so that's something that I want a small firm architect to think about is when I am on a project, right? I may have done this project or variations of it so many times. I may know exactly how this should go, right? But understand that there are so many variables that you can't affect, and all you can do is to endeavor to design to the standard of care. And we'll get into the ways that you elevate the standard of care. Typically, those are warranties and guarantees. I feel the need to, before we jump in, give a couple disclaimers. I am not an attorney. I did not go to law school. I do not play one on the internet, and this is not legal advice. This is just advice that I've developed through my own experience through the years. These are just learnings that I've seen, some mistakes I've seen other firms make, and just kind of best practices that we've pulled together. So take that with a grain of salt. If you need a good attorney, I've got one. Steve Litchfield has been on this Context and Clarity with me. I work with a number of different attorneys in a number of different states, and I can set you up there. But for our purposes, we're just going to stick with insurability today, and this is not legal advice. So we defined the standard of care. That was the AIAB 101 definition. Here's another one, which is, what would a reasonably prudent architect do under similar circumstances in a similar locale at the time in question, right? And we're kind of hitting this similar level, similar services, similar time, similar place. And what is this? This is going to be our grading criteria, right? This is going to be how we're going to be judged if and when something does go wrong. And we want it to be we want it to be the C plus average, right? We need it to be for insurability purposes. We need it to be this middle of the road, and that kind of tracks back to what I was saying earlier, which is, we're putting down ideas on paper, we're putting down design, and they're imperfect by nature, so we just can't guarantee anything, right? A contractor can guarantee a lot of stuff. In fact, they're expected to. Design professionals, we cannot guarantee our work. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And so, okay, so we've defined this. The standard of care is going to dictate almost everything in a contract. It's why it's our Monday topic. It's why this is where we're starting. If we can nail down a good standard of care, it will fix a very high percentage of our contract. And I wish Tim, my buddy Tim from Architectica, he's not on here today. He told me he couldn't be here, but Tim is part of this community, and Tim does schools. They specialize in schools. And negotiating contracts with schools is a very difficult thing to do, just like negotiating with public entities, or there's a number of different clients that I could think of as like, you're just not going to get that changed, right? The place where we can go when we are negotiating a contract, something like that, the one thing that we can affect, or maybe the two, the first one is going to be standard of care. Next one's going to be scope of services. We're talking about that tomorrow. But if we nail down a good standard of care, it will set the precedent for the entire contract, right? And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. But if we get this one thing right, we can fix a lot of wrongs. And sometimes there are a lot of wrongs in our contract. So does that make sense to everybody? I want to make sure that we're good there. I know we're not taking too many questions, but
that's a good question. If that makes sense to you, type yes in the comments. If it doesn't make sense to you, just go ahead and drop that in the comments as well. What question do you have related to Zach's the definitions that Zach shared and the analogies that he shared about standard of care?
okay.
And as let me just say also, I'm typing this in the comments right now, but the day one homework has been uploaded to the Entree Architect community. The Entree Architect community Facebook group. We need to change a setting for the Architects and Allies group. So we'll get that uploaded to that group as soon as possible. But if you have signed up for the emails, that email will come to you with today's homework at the end of the session today. So I see a lot of yeses.
A lot of yeses. That's good. There was a great question there, which is the standard of care, a section in the proposal. It depends on what contract or what proposal that you're using. So the Entree community, Mark has drafted a great hybrid proposal that I love, that I've been through. If you are drafting your own agreement, which I strongly recommend you do, it should be the very, very top of your agreement. If you are signing or looking at a client drafted agreement, right, then it should be a labeled portion of the contract. Sometimes they like to use fancy labels. I've seen this called performance design professional or performance section. So the first thing is kind of getting to the next point, which is, how do I review a contract? The very first thing I do when I get an agreement in hand, I'm going to Control F, and I'm looking for that standard of care. And this is a telling point to me. And so for our purposes here, we're thinking about a client drafted agreement, right? We're not thinking about something that I made myself, or that I sat down with an attorney and drafted, right? Hopefully we've done that and we've nailed that down. If I'm working in kind of high-end residential and clients are signing my agreement, maybe this doesn't quite apply to you. But if I'm working in commercial work and I'm signing somebody else's agreement, I'm going to go find this section that they call standard of care, and I'm going to read it. And I want to make sure that we are not agreeing to anything more than what we owe. And what we owe is what we read with the AIAB 101 standard there. I'm also, go ahead, sorry.
I think that starts to get to Manuel's question too, because his question is, so unless one uses an AIA contract, will there be a standard of care? I think that's up to you, right? It's up to your
It
contract.
is. And so Steve and I are working on a contract scorecard right now, which is going to be really cool. And the contract scorecard is we're assigning points, right? It's kind of Steve uses a red, yellow, green system when he's reviewing. This is a hard no. This is I can live with it, and this is a yes. We like this. As I'm starting to look through this, if we don't have a labeled standard of care in the contract, I'm going to start to wonder out loud whether this contract was meant for a design professional, right?
Mm.
And that this is going to speak very highly to what level of client you're dealing with. And I'm going to use a term that we call a sophisticated client. And that doesn't mean smart. That doesn't mean intelligent. Sophisticated means has experience with. And sometimes we deal with less sophisticated clients. If I'm designing a single family home, right, custom residential, I might have two clients that have no idea about construction or about what the duty owed by an architect, and it's up to me to kind of educate them, right? If I'm dealing with a developer that I've worked with 10 times already, and they work with me on a regular basis, they understand the standard of care, I'm expecting that to be labeled pretty clearly. I'm expecting that they kind of know what they're doing here. But when we're looking for the standard of care, it's the first point system in my head is it written correctly, right? Is it outlined correctly? Have they tried to sneak some things in there? Or I saw this about a week and a half ago. Is this a contractor's agreement that we have adapted a little bit where maybe the opening paragraph, instead of using the word consultant or architect, labels us as a contractor, which we are not. And all of the language is written for a contractor and has warranties and guarantees and all of these things. And then we've snuck a standard of care in somewhere, right? I see that a fair amount. And so it gets back to our idea of a framework. There's not one thing I can tell you, which is just, hey, do this and you're good to go, right? It is not anywhere close to that clear. This is a way of thinking, though. And the way of thinking is I need to make sure that this was written for an architect, for a design professional, and not for a contractor. Because contractors, from an insurance standpoint, their general liability is their big policy. It covers completed operations. It allows for warranties and guarantees. It allows for contractual liability. An architect's professional liability policy does none of that. It does not allow for that. It insures you for negligence, and it insures you to the standard of care. And so if we've elevated that standard of care and something goes wrong and somebody wants to bring a claim against us, the insurance company is going to go look at that, and they're going to look at the contract and they're going to say, did you elevate it? Right? And if we did, we're in trouble because we've paid a bunch of money to have this pot of money here to protect us, and now we've risked taking ourselves out of coverage.
What are the most common ways that you see architects mistakenly elevating the standard of, or well, mistakenly, or I guess even intentionally elevating the standard of care?
Mistakenly. So these are some red flag words. I've got this in a document. We'll send this out to you as part of the marketing here with the homework. Red flag words in a contract: sole, any and all, fully, protect, guarantee of perfection, highest, 100%, defend. Well, that's for an indemnification, but first class, certify, fiduciary, safeguard, best, complete, absolute, mistake-free, perfect, strict, and error-free. I have a running Google Doc, as you can tell, on my computer, that when I come across language that's like, no, that's not for us. That's not meant for us, right? You're elevating the standard of care, Mr. and Mrs. Client. That is not an all-encompassing list by any means, but we see those words pop in, right? We see those words pop in a lot. And sometimes the standard of care will read like a normal. It'll read the AIB 101, and then it'll have 2 or 3 other sentences below it that says, client agrees to give first class service. Well, what does that mean? Is that a better meal on an airplane? I don't even know what first class service means, right? Tell me. And maybe, this is a conversation that you and I can have, Jeff, about marketing, which is, we want to make ourselves sound good. We are good at what we do, right? We are, to be an architect is not an easy thing, man. I'm preaching to the choir, but it's a lot of schooling. It's a lot of tests. It's a lifelong endeavor, right? You're hitting your stride well after. It's the opposite of professional athlete, right? A professional football player has this tiny window in their 20s to make it work, and then you're done. An architect spends decades learning and then is really hitting their swing in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, maybe even later, right? And so, we have we have a huge responsibility, but we can also only agree to this thing called the standard of care. And yet, in our marketing, on our website, in our proposals, we like to say things like, "We will be the best," right? We will do this, 100%. We will give the highest level of service. And for insurability purposes, we just can't do those things. And so it's a conversation that you and I can have, and I probably won't dive too deep because we only have a little bit of time. But from a marketing standpoint, how do we market ourselves? How do we market as a small firm architect and still meet the standard of care and not elevate it? Right? That's $1 million question.
Yeah, I think it is, but I think there's a pretty basic concept that we can keep in mind that would go a long ways towards keeping you out of trouble. And anybody that's been through my build your brand stuff is, and this is not a promo, this is not a planned promo for build your brand or anything like that. But if you make the narrative and the copy on your website about your client, you're going to avoid
Yes.
using these words. You're going to avoid saying these things, right? If you make everything in your website client focused and about their success, how they see success, then you're going to avoid those types of things. There's still some pitfalls.
Yeah.
Hey, dear client, you're looking for the best, this, that. We need to stay away from conflating that you're looking for the best with, hey, I'm the best.
Right.
Things like that. But I think that's a great first step, is make it on the marketing side, right, on the website, the proposal, those all that collateral is what we, marketing speak, I guess, but all that collateral, make it about your client and how they view success,
Right.
rather than, if I were to, this may be slightly crass, not crude, but crass, instead of tooting your own horn, right?
Right.
Instead of saying me, because that's not what they're looking for anyway,
Right.
make it about them and their success. And that'll keep you probably as far away from those elevating kind of words as you
Right.
can be from a starting point.
Right. No, that's absolutely, make it about them. If you're going to make it about you, you can say, this is the work that I've done, right? So if schools are my thing, here are the 10 school projects that we've worked on in the last decade, right? My subconsultants that I work with, they specialize in schools as well. And that's kind of as far as you're going to go with it, right? Is that, we're going to let our work speak for ourselves. And so I understand it's not an all-encompassing answer, and it's a much bigger question that we could probably spend hours on, but it is one of the areas that where we elevate the standard of care. And John asked a good question down there, which is, does it matter? It really does matter, John, if I'm applying, or if I'm replying to an RFP, RFQ, and I've got a statement of qualifications, and I put that, and that gets attached to the contract. And all of a sudden now those superlative words that I've used in my marketing are attached to this contract, and that contract is now being executed, as a project. Yeah, then it does matter. Then it does get put into play. If it's a website, I just took on a client not that long ago, and I went on their website, and they're an engineer, and they said, we guarantee our work for life. I'm like, oh boy. Does that in and of itself, is that getting attached to any contract? No. Do I love it as a risk manager? No, I want to change it. Right. So
It's coming up in discovery.
yeah, it is, right. It's very available, and that's a scope of services for a different conversation. But like,
Yeah.
what is available in discovery, and if there is a lawsuit and a claim, oh
Yeah.
man, I mean, everything, pretty much everything that you haven't said to your attorney is available. So,
Yeah.
So a couple quick points, and if you only take this one away, this is worth the price of admission. Understanding this is free, but um, clearly
Speaking
define,
marketing.
right? When we have our standard of care in a cloud or in a contract, capitalize it, bold it, put it in quotations. It is now a definition, just like every other definition that we have in the agreement. And we will refer back to it as a definition. And then now, as I'm hitting these other clauses, I'm using phrases like timeliness of performance in accordance with the standard of care, right? Warrants to not observe but inspect on a job site in accordance with the standard of care, and in agreement with the standard of care, in alignment with the standard of care. I've made this standard of care my definition up above. This is what I'm responsible for. And so all of these things that you want to add in, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that are elevations, rather than sit and nitpick them, and we do this, and it is hard. It is sometimes negotiating a contract is a very tough thing, especially if the fee's not there, right? If we're talking about a low fee contract and it's like, hey, we don't have 4 weeks to go back and forth on this thing. I want to nail down a very solid standard of care, and then I want to nail down a very solid scope of services. And I want to refer everything back to that standard of care saying, yep, but in line with our definition up there. And that can solve a lot of problems for you.
Now, to be clear, you're saying take the words standard of care, bold, capitalize,
Yep.
put neon around them, whatever you need to
Yep.
do, being very literal
Yep.
about that. Yeah.
Yep. The duty owed. I would make it, if I'm drafting my own agreement, and obviously you should do this with an attorney. So, each attorney is going to have their own kind of spin on how to do this. But if I'm drafting my own, I'm going to make it incredibly clear, just so ridiculously clear what is expected of us. If it's a client drafted agreement, and I'm having to negotiate it, and we'll touch on negotiations here the last 5 minutes, that's the one I want to negotiate the most, right? That is the one where if we can't agree on that, we have a go, no go problem here, right? If my client, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's such a good point. Go, no go, right? Again, marketing, business development, not really the scope of this challenge, but you hit the nail on the head there, right? If someone is asking you to change these things, that should be something in my opinion, that should be something in your go, no go process, your form, whatever it is that you have that's weighted like 10x, 100x, something like that. It's the red flag, right? They're asking you to take on, risk that you're not prepared for, that you're probably not insured for, all of these things. Stephanie is asking a question. She says, will we define standard of care in these sessions? And she may have just popped in, but you actually went through the definition earlier, right?
Yeah, Stephanie, I've got it up there. We're just the one that part of the homework is, Christian popped it in there.
There you go.
We're going to stick with the AIAB 101 definition in the 2017 version. It's a great play. It's a great one for architects. I've seen so many different versions of it, and really all that you want to make sure is that it touches on the 4 different areas, which are similar level, similar services, similar time, similar place, right? And without getting too deep into that, what we're doing there is we're very clearly honing in on what our standard is and who is going to be able to judge it. If you were designing a footbridge in Indiana, that the standard that you need to design to is X, and I'm not the expert on that. You guys are. If you were designing it in San Francisco, California on a fault line, that standard is going to be Y, and it's because we have these things called earthquakes out there, and it's on a fault line, and we know that it's dangerous. And if the big earthquake were to hit, bad things will happen. So each different area has its own standard of care in a way. And Steve and I did a webinar on this the last 2 weeks ago, which was on the elevation or the evolving standard of care. It's great. I can send you the link. You just go check it out. But we dive into like different weathers, different locales. During COVID 2 years ago, some cities were completely shut down and some weren't. So what's the standard of care on a site visit? It's different kind of wherever you go. But again, kind of scope for another day. Um, Real quick before we wrap this up, Jeff, I want to touch on negotiating it,
Perfect.
and this gets back to the level of sophistication of our client, right? And again, sophistication not meaning intelligence, right? I'm not talking about whether you're smart or not. I'm talking about your experience and understanding here. And three phrases that we hear a lot are: one, well, my contractor signed this elevation of standard of care. Why won't you? And we hit on this a little bit, but not the same thing, right? Contractors insurance set up much differently than architects. They're able to and required to warrant and guarantee their work. Architects not able to do that. We owe a duty to design to the standard of care. And what we're getting at here is your job as the architect is to educate your clients, right? They probably don't know, especially if they're unsophisticated, they don't know what to expect. And so you have to proactively educate your clients here. Um, the next one that I see is other architects have signed this. This is like a bigger, school board or a public agency. Other people have signed this. Why won't you sign it? Hey, I totally get it. They may have been willing to sign it. It doesn't make it insurable, though. And my risk management team has advised me that this is uninsurable. But really, what we're trying to get to is a meeting of the minds here. I want to make sure that I can make this right for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client. If I make a negligent mistake, right? If I make an error in omission, I want to make sure that we can take care of that for you. And the best way that we can do that is for you to sign this language, agreeing to this standard of care. And then I have this insurance policy over here that is set at probably millions of dollars to take care of that. If you're pushing me to sign this agreement and we take ourselves out of coverage, that pot of money goes away. And now you're coming after me and my personal assets. And I don't have nearly as many personal assets as that $1 million most of the time, right? And so the last one I'll hear is, we have just a minute, is I don't care how you pay. I just want to make sure that I'm taken care of. And that goes back to our go no go checklist. If we're negotiating an agreement and the other side is saying, well, I don't care how you pay, start to wonder whether we're on the same page, whether this is a good client for us, because it only gets more difficult, right? You all know this. It only gets more difficult as the agreement, as we get into different phases and such. If we can't come to an agreement in the beginning, if we are contentious and fighting in the beginning, it's not like we're fighting and then it's all good at the end. It's like, what is this person going to expect of me if things go sideways, right? And that's a whole nother conversation between fault and exposure that we had a little bit on context and clarity. But that's kind of how I would think about that in terms of negotiating the standard of care.
I think that's a great point. And Anne, I saw it in the comments a few minutes ago when we were talking about basically the client asking you to elevate the standard of care. She called it a deal breaker. And I think, take Anne's comment and take what Zach just said. And again, when we see red flags, right? If the client wants this, that, or the other, or I see this and they're not communicating at this point, and this is beyond the standard of care conversation, but we need to pay attention to those things, right? And those of you that know me know I have some really horrific stories about ignoring red flags, and thankfully none about standard of care personally, but the thing you just said, right? If it's this way in the beginning, what's it going to be like 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year and a half from now, when dirt's moving, there's a delay in supply chain, delay in some sort of material, whatever. I worked in firms for over 20 years. I haven't for a while now. I never saw it get easier.
No.
I don't know about anybody else, but I never saw it get easier, right? Once things get dirty, it seems to get harder. So I think that's an excellent comment.
Right.
And a great way to wrap up this first session.
All right. Gosh, time flies.
Oh, it goes by quickly. Yeah, but don't worry, everybody. We're doing this for
We got
5
more.
days, right? This is the 5-day challenge to build a risk management plan for your small architecture firm. What we're going to do here in just a second, we're going to have to switch over. We're going to switch from Restream, which we use now, to Zoom, and so it'll take us a minute. But we're going to go backstage. We'll do this every single day. We'll have a learning session, a training session at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific for an hour, and then we'll go backstage and do a full Q&A, full discussion and Q&A on what we talked about in the training session. If you are an Entree Architect Academy member, this Q&A, the backstage, the VIP experience is part of your membership. So that's available to you. If you are not, it's still available to you. Go to entrearchitect.com/VIP and register there. Today, we're opening it up to everybody. After today, if you're not a paid member, you'll have to pay $97 for it. But you can decide after today whether it's worth it to you. Stephanie says she can't make it to the Q&A. Will it be available later to watch? Today's will be available to everybody to watch. Beyond today, only those who have the VIP access. If you get the VIP access, you get lifetime access to this training session, all the training sessions, to all the VIP sessions. Zach mentioned a couple of resources earlier. You'll get access to that, all the homework, and all of those things. So that's all in that VIP package there. So go to entrearchitect.com/VIP for that. Join us here momentarily. I posted it in the comments, but here's the link on the screen as well. It's a Zoom link. Just go there, give us a few minutes, and we'll let you in there.
Deal.
And if you registered for the emails, the email with today's homework should be coming to you momentarily. If you said, "Hey, I don't want the emails," inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group and inside the Entree Architect and Allies group, the email is posted. So it's don't get bent out of shape. It's not huge. It's like go
It's
find your
not.
standard of
I
care.
promise it's not.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hated homework as a student, so the irony of me giving homework is not lost on me.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's baby steps. It's
exactly.
baby steps on the way to having your own risk management plan. So today
Right.
is about standard of care. Check it out. And again, it's either coming to you via email or it's in one of the 2 Facebook groups. So that's out there. What have I forgotten, Zach? There's something I feel like I've forgotten something.
Um, do we need to go through the homework or
I don't think we
yes,
necessarily do. Just
okay.
as a quickie, the the first step is to review your own standard of care. Is it
Yes.
like AIA B 101? Yes or no? And the second is to look in a recent contract for language that elevates your standard of care.
Yes, and I would love to see these. Selfishly, I love to see these because this is how we teach, and this is how we get better, and this is what I learned from for so many years.
Yep.
But everybody does this a little bit differently. If you're going to pull, actually copy and paste a standard of care, make sure to redact any other important information. We're not calling out any specific parties, but this is a great learning tool that we can go through kind of a little more in depth this week.
Yep.
But yeah, just to see all the different ways that they can be elevated, that's be really handy.
And that's a great point and a great reminder. What I would like you to do is after we're all done here, I know you're busy and all of those things, but after we're all done, between now and tomorrow's session, I would like you to either go live inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group or the Architects and Allies group, and just for like a minute and a half, talk about your biggest takeaway from today and share what you've done in your homework. If you can't stand to be on camera, I get it. Totally fine. Then at least go into one of the Facebook groups and post in the group, "Hey, this is my biggest takeaway from the training today. Here's what I did for my homework." That does a couple of things. It encourages others, it reminds others, but it also helps all of you, gives all of you the ability, and us the ability to learn from you and your experience. So that's part of this community aspect of doing these challenges. So that's what I would like you to do
Right.
between now and 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So um, with that, we need to wrap it up. We're going to go backstage. Again, Mark has just posted in the comments again the link, the Zoom link to join us backstage. It's on the screen if you want to start typing. US02 web. I would mess that up in a heartbeat. Um, click the link in the comments, and we will see you over on the Zoom side here in just a few minutes. All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody. Thanks, Zach.